Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Rumors versus Facts. We need to get back into doing these. We've been busy covering Georgia's football season, and that kind of we ran into time constraints. But now that the season is over, we can spend more time on that. And if you have comments and you want to ask questions about the season and what's going on with the team, we're more than happy to answer those. It's been a situation where when I've been going live lately, there have been an absolute ton of questions about guys on the team, who's going pro, who's not, and we'll be happy to answer all of those. But what I've done the last 3 days is try to do basically a portal recap, like what's going on with the portal, because the portal is only 10 days. So we'll try to have 10 shows. Today's the 4th day of the portal. We'll have our 4th show about the portal, so you can check it out. Good to see Roger Murray and Mountain Man 73, who's a member. That's a nice one. We appreciate all the people who are members of our site. Your support does mean a lot to us, and we always try to answer their questions first. I'm going to take some of these in reverse order. I have Harrison Reno joining us because I can't keep up with all these portal kids. So we make Harrison do that. So that's his job. And it's very interesting because the latest portal update, Harrison, is that Vanderbilt receiver Trey Richardson is visiting Georgia on the 6th, which I'm no genius, but that is tomorrow. 46 catches, 806 yards, 7 touchdowns in 2025. That is pretty damn impressive. Almost 1,000-yard receiver at Vandy. Now, granted, Vandy threw it all over the yard with Pavia. But they've got a 5-star quarterback they stole from Georgia named Jared Curtis. Why is he not staying?
That's kind of where you started.
Jared Curtis train.
It's a great question. I mean, and then look, like Trey Richardson, you look at his production, he's only 43 yards short of Zachariah Branch. What does Zachariah Branch put on this season with 81 receptions? So, Georgia's obviously, as we've kind of reported over time.
Oh, we just lost you, dude.
The microphone. Yeah,
I can hear you now.
Replaced it. Georgia's looking at a ton of different, kind of receivers in the portal, but we've kind of seen them go after that X receiver type, more of those, bigger bodies. And that's kind of where they're taking the most hits, Roddy, is Colby Young, Noah Thomas. We're talking about guys that are 6'3" at least, guys who will ever win the football in the air. But this is a guy that seemingly kind of fits more in that Zachariah Branch role in terms of playing in the slot, being more of a, short to intermediate option for Georgia in the passing game, which I don't know what the official stat was, but most of Georgia's passes were kind of within that 5 to 10 range, 5 to 10 yards, within 5 to 10 yards of the line of scrimmage this year. And I know some people hate it, Roddy, but essentially, Zachariah Branch was their second best running back on the team with the screen passes that he picked up. So kind of a name that when he went into the portal, you see the production, like they always post the 2-year statistics, Roddy. You always see, 800 yards and 3 years at so-and-so school. But for Richardson, it's 800 yards in 1 year. Like, certainly get your attention quickly.
It does. And, Georgia's needed some big receivers. They need a lot of receivers because for those who haven't, say it's 7 o'clock, maybe you got home late from work or you had dinner when you got home. Maybe you paid attention to your family. You do that, but let's just say you're finally sitting down now to pay attention to some Georgia football. You may not have known the latest news. Zachariah Branch has declared for the NFL. Georgia put together quite a NIL package for him, which would have been a record-setting deal for Georgia, for the most they had ever offered. So if you could have a situation where, you have a situation where you're losing Dylan Bell. He graduates. Colby Young should be gone. Noah Thomas is out of eligibility. Zachariah Branch is going to the NFL. You've lost a ton of wide receivers across the board. So are you just going to pull from the wide receivers you have on staff, or are you going to go to the portal and grab some? And Trey Richardson, that could be your next Zachariah Branch. Slot receiver, 700, 800 yards. You're basically selling him on exactly what Zachariah Branch did. So, look, we can do this at Georgia and not at Vandy. We play for SEC titles. We can make it to the playoffs. You don't have to do it with a freshman quarterback. So he's pretty interesting. And they are looking for the big ones. Your for folks who haven't seen this before, Harrison's doing a good job every night writing the portal recap, basically what happened throughout the day. And the one from day 2 was about 3 wide receivers right off the bat. So there's a lot of wide receivers out there that Georgia needs to replace. I mean, hell, they're even losing Cole Spear. So, and that's not to say anything against C.J. Wiley or Talon Taylor or London Humphreys. Sokovi White-Helton to play that slot, but you still, I mean, you had all those guys on the roster this year. You've signed some freshman wide receivers, but you need to bring in more. So,
I think they kind of learned their lesson there that 2024 season in terms of not being as aggressive and grabbing people out of the portal when they could have just, they opted kind of promote from within in terms of what their usage was, and they saw how quickly guys can get picked off due to suspensions and injuries. And right, I know every portal class is different, so obviously maybe one year the portal's not too great a receiver, and maybe you don't take anybody. But right now with all the production Georgia losing, like it would kind of be a red flag not to at least try and get somebody, at least one.
Yeah, dude, there's I think it's 5,000 kids are in the portal already. So yeah, there's some wide receivers out there. One of which there's a guy that's I've never known how to say his last name, Jalen Mbakwe. Yeah. When we saw him in high school, just a physical specimen. Just everybody fell in love with him because he's just such a good-looking athlete. Can play defensive back or wide receiver. Wound up at Alabama. Was mentioned that he was going to visit Georgia Tech, Georgia, and a bunch of other schools. We were told that Georgia wasn't that interested in it. And that's not. I'm not trying to go against what Pete at On 3 was reporting, but we were just told that from someone on the Georgia staff, they're like, no, we're not in the mix for him. And sure enough, he just committed to Georgia Tech. So you'll get to see him. Just not. He had his chance to come to Georgia out of high school, and he had his chance to maybe come to Georgia out of the portal, but that's twice. So, but when you see that kid, you'll be like, oh, he's pretty good. So it'll be interesting. Where does he play at Georgia Tech? Is he offense? Is he defense? Tech just lost their defensive coordinator. They lost their offensive coordinator. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with him at Tech.
I'm kind of curious, like you just said, where is he going to play? I doubt he plays two ways. I also wonder if kind of that same question maybe influenced the answer we got from that Georgia staffer in terms of about certain, from that person's perspective, maybe they're not so interested in him as maybe it so seemed. He was, I know he was scheduled to go to a visit supposedly to Georgia today, and I guess committed to Tech right after his visit or during his visit to Georgia. I don't know if we ever got confirmation.
Could have came to Athens and said, "Oh well, y'all like me, but y'all don't like me as much as you like somebody else." Like that Isaiah Canyon kid out of Tech. That's one I will. I'm not going to give away my sources here, but I can look. Let me see some of the names here that I was told.
You talk about cameras coming out quickly. You start talking about sources, Roddy. Everyone starts perking up a little bit.
No, I mean, they like him. They like Gilmer. I know they like the Alexander kid. So just saying that when we're told about some of the guys that they're after, Buckway wasn't on there, but that Isaiah Canyon kid. That's I told people early on when I did a day 3 recap. I said, look, our staff has written we normally don't talk about this, but we've written ahead of time a commitment article on Isaiah. So yeah, if he doesn't pick Georgia, then we throw it away. Just delete it. But that's one of the kids that Georgia is prioritizing. And so if they get him, that's a big get. So shout out to, and Michael Kilpatrick mentioned him, and Jace Brown. That's pretty good. Or Rousseau or Keeley from Alabama. Those are also some good ones there too. Luke Howe says Zach Branch was the only wide receiver to have an immediate impact. The rest have needed a year to acclimate. He had the biggest impact. Most of those guys could play right away. Colby and London Humphreys played right away. There was one game this year where all the touchdowns were scored by transfer wide receivers. So Coach Hayes Huddle's listening to us. He's driving through downtown Atlanta. Hey, keep your head on a swivel down there, Coach. If you're going through downtown Atlanta, just be careful down there. Boy, Randy's has joined us as well. I do want to get to Fred's question here, but I'm going to kind of go through some of the more of the other updates from today. There's a transfer offensive lineman from LSU who was going to visit earlier, but now he's rescheduled his visit for the 8th. Ole Miss, Arkansas, Missouri will get him on campus before the Bulldogs do. And just wondering if Georgia's got a really good offensive line coming back. We haven't heard from Ernest Green or Monroe Freeling. Mike Bobo's, I don't know if he didn't say that Drew Bobo's coming back, but he said Drew Bobo has another year of football. And considering I expect Drew Bobo to play in the NFL, I'm pretty sure Mike meant Drew has another year of college football. You get both your starting guards back. Well, maybe Micah Morris moves on, but Dontrell Glover and Juan Gaston will be your starting guards, if not Gaston doesn't move out to tackle. But you could have a really good offensive line. So Curious Kern, the very LSU transfer offensive lineman, I don't see the where does he play right off the bat? I just don't know that Georgia's going to be in it for him.
Well, I think the biggest, I guess, deciding point for that will be what kind of happens. Because I think right now, I think Monroe Freeling's, from everything we've kind of talked about, and I mean, you can see it just in the public in terms of mock drafts, Monroe Freeling looks like he might be a back end of the first round guy. And if that's the case, which right now without the combine, which I'm sure he might do some freaky things at the combine, just watching him over the last year or so, where's the gap on the offensive line? If it's at left tackle, do you move Juan Gaston out to left tackle?
Tackle.
So, and Curious Curdy, I know he played tackle at LSU. I believe it was right tackle. Do you trust him to make the switch over there? Like, it's real interesting. And then you talk about Ernest Green. I'm not sure if that guy is going to be a high-end draft pick right now.
Now with his back issues.
Yeah, not with back issues. So, I would assume maybe he's probably the more likely of the two. But then the question becomes, Roddy, it's like, do you move Ernest Green back to left tackle? Or with his kind of health history, do you have to keep him right tackle so it's not, if he goes down again, it's not crippling to your line unit? So I certainly kind of see the need there for Kearney. And I think more so question becomes, what's his interest in Georgia and what's his, vision for it? Because I think you can make a case the path to playing time is probably a lot more open at Ole Miss, at Arkansas, maybe even Missouri than it is Georgia right now. But, we're still just a couple days after the Sugar Bowl, and we don't know the decisions of Monroe Freeling and Ernest Green. And, if those come out and they're both gone, then Kearney probably looks at Georgia a whole different way now.
Well, I think it's one of those things that I know a lot of people didn't want to see Zach Branch announced he's going pro. CJ Allen, also the Georgia's inside linebacker, their star inside linebacker, announced he's going pro as well. You're kind of hoping that those guys stick around. And like I said, Georgia went as far as they could to try to keep Zach Branch not from going pro, but to try to make it so that, look, if you come back, you'll get paid a lot of money. But again, there's people talking about he's a possible first round guy, second round guy. You can't offer that sort of money that he would make. So, but I'm glad they came out on January 5th, because if you have an Isaiah Canyon coming, you have a Trey Richardson, you have these wide receivers, offensive linemen who are inside linebackers, outside linebackers. The more guys who announce, yes, I'm coming back to Georgia, no, I'm going to the NFL, that makes it easier on the guys in the transfer portal, and it lets Georgia know, hey, we have to replace Zach Branch. We have to replace Monroe Freeling. We have to replace whoever. So the earlier those decisions are made, the better it is for everyone involved. And I know you're like, hey, no news is good news. Don't tell me the bad news. I want you to just the longer it lasts, maybe these guys will stay. And if they're going to stay, great. But that's why if I'm curious, I'm like, look, hey, Monroe, go ahead and put out your Instagram one way or the other. Green, put out your note, on Instagram one way or the other. So Raylan Wilson, do yours. So I'm with it.
Roddy, I take it you know this better than I will. I assume exit meetings are going on right now, end of year meetings for a lot of those NFL guys with the Georgia staff. So, like, even if they're not publicly out there yet, I'm sure, at least for some of these guys, the staff kind of knows an outlook of what they're looking at in terms of departures. If I'm not mistaken, that's kind of what's going on right now inside the building.
They had a bunch of those meetings before the bowl game. Because you had that, think about it, they had the 25-day layoffs. That's when a lot of that stuff went down. So, and of course, now you get some feedback from the NFL in this area. So, they wanted to have locked everybody down before the bowl game because they knew that there's a possibility when the portal opened, they would be preparing to go out to Glendale, Arizona. So you've already had contracts signed, guys that know they're staying, and they're agreed to an NIL amount, raise whatever. That's already been done. So a lot of these things are like, oh, well, we've known that I talk to people, they're like, oh, we've known that for 4 days. I'm like, well, shit, why do we wait 4 days? You could announce that on January 2nd after the game was over. Put that out that night. We worked late on the first, we were up, we'd have seen it. So I'm with you there. So Corey says he thinks Green and Monroe are gone, but Bobo stays. I disagree. I think Green comes back. Monroe was hinting that, or seemed to be saying that he was coming back, but that's a lot of guys. Like I was mentioning this earlier. After Raylan Wilson I heard someone say Raylan Wilson's coming back inside the Superdome in New Orleans after the game was over. But I take that with a grain of salt because that's right after the game. A lot of these guys are like, I'm not going out like that. And they swear they're coming back because they're pissed off at losing. And then after they talk to agents and talk to the family, they're like, look, we got 2 SEC championships. The iron's red hot for me to go to the NFL now. And then they do. So they could change your mind. Good question here is apparently from I'm in love with femboys. Okay, that's a hell of a handle. Are we going to go for Cam Coleman? Cam says, is Georgia going to go for Cam Coleman? I don't know. Yes, he is a priority. James Coley would love to land him. Know people who know people who know people who know James Coley. And yes, they've been aware of Cam Coleman since November. Not to say aware of him, but they've been keeping an eye on him since November, just in case. It's going to cost a lot of money to get Cam Coleman. It started out at $2 million before he was even in the portal, and Georgia's like, no. Texas A&M was like, hell yeah, we got that. You take a check, So yeah, crypto. How do you want it? We'll get it to you. Teasing, but there are multiple schools that are in it for him. But then that number has just gone up. So, and then every time I hear that Georgia's not going to go up and go spin that, I hear, yep, they just might. Or somebody else has been called in. So my answer to the Cam Coleman thing is yes, no, yes, no. It's constantly changing. So
there's definitely conversations being had. I would for sure. I guess the thing everyone's waiting for, Roddy, like in terms of the Cam Coleman sweepstakes, if Georgia gets a visit, I think that's a great sign in terms of having a shot. But if you don't get a visit, you're more than on the outside looking in.
The visits, nothing against. I agree with you, but the visit doesn't
make or break
change the fact that you're $300,000 less than the other school. That visit ain't going to make up a $300,000 difference. Now, maybe it does. Maybe they're like, hey, look, you're offering 1.3 or 2.3. They're offering 2.6. But you're going to develop me so that I go from a second round pick to a first round pick. So maybe it does there, but a lot of them are just like, hey, I just need another year to play. I'm going to play where I can get my max goal or play on a team that will win a championship. A lot of people said that Cam Coleman is, Auburn was offering him as much as anybody else, and he just wants to go someplace where he can win a championship. I'm suspicious of that, but I mean, that's what the Auburn folks say, so I trust him. So good luck to him. Trying to see here. We'll be okay.
Hey, here's a great question about your favorite 17-year-old.
He's perpetual 17-year-old. That's funny. When I pray to Ryan Williams, I like to imagine him in the manger scene, dear baby Ryan Williams, sitting there in the manger, or in his tuxedo shirt. If you haven't watched Talladega Nights, you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. But so I actually asked on the board, and I think I asked it somewhere else. There were rumors about Ryan Williams maybe being interested in going to the portal, but I haven't seen them from anybody that is, how do I put this? Legitimate. I don't say legitimate, just people that I normally follow. When someone tells me that, hey, here's something to keep an eye on, a lot of that stuff comes true. But I haven't had anybody like that. But I keep seeing this thing pop up, and there have been anybody who's really good. There's always going to be portal rumors about them. But I'm just saying that if you could get Ryan Williams, if you can develop him, he did not have as a great sophomore.
And I want to say someone put out quotes of him post game at the Rose Bowl talking about how he's staying. So now, granted, we're talking post game. We're at the Rose Bowl. Like, shoot, ask me at the Rose Bowl, Roddy. I'll stay anywhere if we're over there at the Rose Bowl. So yeah, you can put as much stock into that as you want.
But yeah, it's my point is people say stuff like that, and even the guys right after a game will say, well, here's the thing: we will have kids. Was it Derek Cooper that committed on his visit to Georgia?
Yep.
By the time he got home, his mother shot that down. There are a lot of kids who, after they visit Georgia on the Sunday after a visit or the Monday after a visit, they're like, they're my leader. 3 weeks later, Georgia's not the leader anymore. They go visit Tennessee. Everyone starts predicting that kid to go to Tennessee. And then 3 weeks later, winds up committed to FSU or Florida. So that's why I was asking if there'd been any hints on the Ryan Williams, but that would be hilarious if this kid actually
well, and you remember
the Georgia after costing him a game. So.
You sent the video to me for a potential story about him and Jeremiah Smith on, was it a podcast or something, talking about how they both almost ended up at Georgia together. Imagine the world we'd be in right now, Roddy, if that had happened.
That's brutal. That kills me. Rich McKay.
We might lose the comment section for the rest of the night talking about how that didn't happen.
Yeah. Oh, that would be hilarious. There was one other question. Apparently, Harrison, were you sick?
I am currently still.
I appreciate you gutting it out. JJ says, is there another portal for players still in the playoffs?
Yeah, I believe they have 5 days after their final game to decide, if I remember correctly. So they can go in there, and just because the portal closes on the 16th for these guys doesn't mean we won't have decisions after the 16th. The 16th is just the last day to get into the portal for the guys not in the playoffs right now. But for everybody, for Ohio State, or not Ohio State, Miami, Ole Miss, all those guys, if they were to go to the national championship, those players would have, I believe it's 5 days after their final game is played to decide whether or not they go in. And I believe there might even be an exception. If your coach leaves, you have 30 days to decide. So I think the coaching carousel is pretty much done, but there could still be more. Absolutely. Roddy, I'm kind of at the point now where it's like you're waiting to see kind of if there's any late shoe drops. I mean, you remember the rumors about Jaden Ball, and he's supposed to be in the portal 6 weeks ago, apparently, but he's yet to make a decision either way.
No, that one of the questions I got today is like, has Georgia lost anybody of substance? And I was explaining that I came up with a rating system so that every time a kid leaves Georgia, we'll write a story called Cost of Departure or Departure Cost. basically how a lot of people don't know all 105 players on the football team. So if it's a second string inside linebacker or a third string safety or a second string right guard, you're like, well, is that good or bad? I mean, he wasn't a starter, but a lot of the starters are going to leave. A lot of the starters are going to graduate or something's going to happen to them. So we need to look at if they're how much does it hurt if this guy's leaving? So you saw Jaden Harris, the transfer safety from Miami. He puts his name in the portal, and we're like, I don't want to say this kid's not any good, but let's give it a numerical number, just like with quarterbacks or with recruits. If you say, hey, Georgia got a commitment, they're like, well, what was he? 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star? And some people don't even bat an eye unless he's a 5-star. So we can do the same thing when it comes to guys leaving. Let's give him a 1, means it's not a big deal. That's a kid who's probably never going to play here. 10 means you lost to Damon Wilson. You lost to Bear Alexander. You lost to Jermaine Johnson. You lost a first-round pick, an all-SEC type person. This is a brutal loss for your ball club. And right now, you've only lost some 2s and 3s and 1-4. So you haven't lost a ton in the portal yet. 7 guys have gone to the portal for Georgia. I'm expecting more. And I think a lot of it is because these agents are in negotiations. So I think that's the number one thing going on right now. So the 7s, the 8s, the 9s, the 10s, if they're going to go in the portal from Georgia, haven't yet. And I expect there to be a couple that are kicks in the teeth. You might lose an 8 or 9, mainly because the tampering right now is through the roof. Our Trent Smallwood put a note on the board at UGASports.com mentioning the names of the guys that had been he mentioned in a group chat the guys that had been approached, and they are basically every star that you were excited to see upcoming. It's like, okay, they're not going after Raylan Wilson. They're not going after Dontrell Glover or Drew Bobo, guys who are starting. But what about the guy behind him? What about the 4 or 5-star? What about a Zayden Walker who's played a lot on third down? He's a true freshman. You can just see the potential there. Schools will come to him and say, look, you're not the starter, but you come here, you can be the starter. And what are you making there? You're making $800,000. We got more than that. We got $1.3 million. Come on over here. Oh, you're only making $100,000. We got $400,000. Come here. So, and I'm not saying they will only go in the portal when they have a deal made, but that prompts a lot of folks. A lot of guys will go in the portal knowing that. In other words, don't leave the job you have until you have another job lined up. I'm sure you've all been told this. I'm sure you've told your friends, family, colleagues, whoever, don't leave your current job till you have a job to go to. So that's why I think some of these, it's like, oh, well, so far we've been great on the portal. Yeah, you've only lost 7 and no one of major significance. I think Chris Jones it's like the biggest loss so far. But there are a lot of teams throwing crazy numbers at some of your best players who may not be household names yet.
And as we learned, even when a contract's signed, Roddy, doesn't mean they have to stay. Or at least so we know right now. Because, I know there's an ongoing lawsuit about that, but.
Yeah. Miss Mary, I can't imagine having that kind of money in college. Miss Mary, I agree. And again, I don't begrudge them. I'm happy for them. I think it's awesome. But for somebody who had to ride his bike everywhere, I just do laundry, ride my bike. That kind of sucked. Any update on getting Barnes from Clemson? Dogs natty, yes. Khalil Barnes is a Georgia Bulldog. He committed yesterday. I'm interested in that other safety from Clemson. What's his name?
I know it was not Coy Perch. There's hold on, Roddy.
All right, pass rush was bad. Yeah. John Green says, I hear a lot of tamperings happening. You are hearing correctly. And here's the thing. I'm not going to say Georgia's not doing the same thing.
Ricardo Jones.
I'm sorry?
Ricardo Jones was the other guy.
Him. Just there's so many names out there. I keep forgetting who they are. But yeah, Jones had he led the ACC in interceptions. He had 7.
I believe he's an all ACC player too.
Yeah. So, hey, and they played against Georgia, just like Khalil Barnes did. So, come on. A lot of NIL has ruined college football. See, you say that, but if you think about the NIL, I mean, with that, the NIL and transfer portal, people go, I hate this. Okay, I get it. But at the same time, when you were throwing to Colby Young, who wouldn't be here, when you're throwing to Zach Branch, you have a chance to get rid of the dead weight on your roster and replace it with better players. So,
well, look,
it killed the Kirby Smart philosophy or Kirby Smart's advantage. He was prepared to go on a Nick Saban style run because he was the best recruiter in the nation, and he could put together the biggest rosters, the deepest and best rosters. And it was a lot easier for him to get those guys to the NFL. That's exactly what Nick Saban did. Nick Saban's a very good coach, well, the greatest coach, but he always had the best teams. And a lot of times, he just let the best players go out and beat you. He always had the best teams, and that's what Kirby Smart was doing. Look at that 2021 team. Good God, 2022, all those guys got drafted. But you just can't stack talent like that anymore. So to your point, Mero, the NIL and the transfer portal, now you've got Indiana's who's good, Ole Miss who's good, teams who over 50% of their starters came out of the portal. That's just, it has changed it. But if you're an Indiana fan, you have the worst college football team of all time in Division I. And now you're the number 1 seed. So they're going to say NIL is great. But the Georgia, the Ohio States, and teams like that who used to just have their rosters used to be head and shoulders above everybody else, they're not going to like it as much. So I'm not disagreeing with you. You're right, but I'm just saying across the board, more people are following college football than ever before. And it sucks when you lose your best guy, but you also get excited about the guys you add. So I'm not disagreeing with you. Not with Bobo, who's going to go on a save and run. Okay. If you say so. You do know that he wanted to hire Mike Bobo before he hired Todd Monken.
Well, and then Todd Monken was the one that recommended Mike for the job.
Yeah. And Mike was the one that did all the red zone calls. And when Georgia led the nation in red zone. You also had, let's put it this way. Do you think Mike Bobo could have won a championship with Stetson Bennett, Ladd McConkey, Brock Bowers, Amarius Mims, Broderick Jones, just Marcus Roseby, Jack Saint, Kyrus Jackson, James Cook.
I mean, the funny part to me is it's still Monken's offense. It just has a different guy calling the plays. Like, they haven't radically changed what they do. I mean, they add things. They certainly, we saw more pistol sets from them this year than I can remember in a long time. But that's how it works. What you talked about them leading the red zone offense, number 1 in red zone offense in 22. They were number 1 in red zone touchdowns this year, and that's why they did what they did on third down on that heavily criticized down. So we're this better than I. It's gotten to the point with Bobo that even if he does win a championship and all that, and just completed one of his better seasons as coordinator, people are still going to give him crap. So it's just
Well, yeah, it was like this from Sherry says he couldn't win with Stafford and AJ Green. Did anybody? So you had where was the defense in that group? Did Mark Rick win any of those? You're not this. You can't do it with two players. So that's my point. Is you have to stack talent top to bottom. If you had Stafford and Green when Mike Bobo was averaging 42.5 points a game, and your defense is giving up. So you're going to tell me you forgot about Jeremy Pruitt? You forgot about Third and Grantham? Come on, man. Don't cherry pick bullshit like that. Just there's a reason, you know. We have enough talent.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's all Bobo all the time because apparently Glenn Schumann's never made a damn mistake ever, you know. And again, I had somebody on one of my earlier shows say, get rid of Bobo, get rid of Schumann. And I'm like, that's fine. If you want to get rid of them, you want to get rid of one, you should want to get rid of the other. Okay. The only reason I say that is because the defense couldn't stop crap. The defense was the problem this year. The defense was the reason you were behind all the time. So if we're going to apply the same standard of accountability, you should be wanting to get rid of both coordinators. You know, not bringing up shit from when Matt Stafford was here 37 years ago. Yeah, at least it's not the Schottenheimer. Yeah, and I don't want to make fun of James Coley because I like the dude, but it's not. Remember, they had James Coley here. It wasn't great. You didn't have any wide receivers that year due to suspension and injuries. But yeah, we could be looking at Schottenheimer. Yeah, Luke Howe. People forget the defense was the issue back then, not Bobo's offense, right? Because you had a offensive-minded head coach. Monkey would have had problems with Stockton and those running backs. He had the current leading rusher in the NFL as a running back, and he barely used him. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Todd Monken, but that was a really, really it was the culmination of Kirby's best recruiting efforts ever. Offense, defense, special teams, lights out. I think James Coley could have won a title with that. Schottenheimer, no, I won't go that far, but James Coley could have won a title with those guys.
Are we going after the big OT from NC State? Roger, I did send out a text to somebody about that this morning. Have not heard back, unfortunately. Hoping that I'll hear back so we can have something about that. But, I mean, kind of like Roddy and I were talking about, it's kind of like a wait-and-see pattern for Georgia up front. I think Georgia's prepared to get into the market at offensive tackle and offensive line, but you got to have some dominoes fall in terms of who's going to go, who's going to leave to get interest. Because, like, if you're bringing back Monroe Freeling and Ernest Green, ain't no offensive tackle going to want to come to Georgia, you know?
Well, no, that you're not going to pay him what Peak's worth.
Yeah. And PFF really likes the guy. He graded out over an 80 this year, I believe PFF had him as.
He's phenomenal.
Valdosta, Georgia native.
Yep. Look, if you can be a stud in Valdosta in that heat, you can be a stud anywhere, and he absolutely is. Georgia didn't really recruit him very much out of high school, if at all. So, but hey, that's you recruit him now. So, let's see here. You can't stack talent anymore. No one's excusing the defense. Do you have any criticisms of Bobo's play calling? Hell yeah. I did a 1-hour show where I complained about it. I did not like the calls on the goal line there. I complained about his play calling a lot. When we post the video of my conversation with Mike Bobo in New Orleans, I asked him, why do you call so many screens? Why do you run QB draw on 3rd and long? I mean, I don't like cherry picking complaints. You know, I just want one standard, and I don't like people twisting the facts criticize him. Yeah, you fire. If we fired Mike Bobo tomorrow, it'd be the best thing for UGASports in 3 years. But I'm not going to bang on him for the same. In other words, you can't hold him to one set of criticisms and not Glenn Schumann. To me, if you score 34 points in a Sugar Bowl, you should win the game. But your offense, your defense gave up 39. Couldn't get off the field. So,
right. I don't know. Maybe for one day it would be a great day for the site, but I think long term it would be horrible for the Dogman because I don't know what people would be talking about anymore.
Dude,
I think
we'll find something. We can work out some other stuff, we got a whole year to complain about the Braves, man. So don't worry about it. We got that. Need better wide receivers. Yeah. This is the thing, John Green. All these people who complain we're not around went 20 years without an SEC title, not a national title. That was a 40-year drought. An SEC title, not one for 20 years. Some of you folks don't know what it's like to lose 9 times in a row to Tennessee. Well, they thought it would be 9, but it's like 7, 8 times. Go a decade without beating those sons of bitches. Yeah, go through that. Start covering Georgia in 1993, like I did. I started in 1990 at school, and go to Georgia, Florida every year and drive. You have to avoid talk radio, sports radio, ESPN the entire Sunday, Monday on the drive back from Jacksonville, Florida, because you got stomped by Steve Spurrier or somebody. So it sucks. And then this is the oops. Sorry, that's mine. Stupid thing. An SC title means nothing. Okay. You're a moron. They don't fire coaches after back. Kirby's not going to do it. So I get it. Yeah, I hate Phil Fulmer. Could beat Florida. I get it. Brandt's been around. He understands. People complain we had Monken too. 16-9 over Kentucky. We'll never win a title. We'll never win a title with this idiot as the offensive coordinator. Or not, excuse me, at that point it's like win another one. I think that was the 15-0 season. So remember the first 3 quarters of the national championship game, they were cussing Todd Monken and Stetson Bennett like they were ridiculous.
What was it? 6-9 at the end of that halftime? I believe it was 6-9 at half, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do kind of agree with this. Kirby's defensive scheme requires elite talent. I don't know if it does require elite cornerbacks. Absolutely. And I will say that the scheme he runs is so complicated. You got to be elite between the ears. Same old stuff on every Georgia site. What do you mean? Tony Huff, you need I think he's a Vols fan. I don't know. Got the giant orange tee there with V. Could be. John Green, want me to join the show when you go live again? Maybe Harrison, and you can have lunch. I'll take it. I will send
John Green's a legend
link
over on the Peach State Power Hour. I will tell you that. John Green's a legend over there, Roddy. He's a long time listener, and for a while there, we thought it was Eddie's burner account until we had him on, and it proved not to be Eddie.
Great question from Onslaught. Now that you no longer have Branch as wide receiver, who do you think will step up as wide receiver 1? Who's Georgia's number 1 wide receiver right now?
I mean, as of right now, you'd have to say with the returning guys, London Humphrey is probably their most proven target. But I guess betting long term, the staff really likes Talon Taylor. We haven't seen much of CJ Wiley. I think maybe long term, CJ Wiley might become that guy. But it's no coincidence that when Talon Taylor's healthy, that guy gets on the field and they take a shot at him once or twice a game. So right now, you're probably talking about him being in the running, but maybe Roddy at this point, if we're talking about receiver, can I give you a low hanging fruit answer and say Lawson Lucky? I know he's a tight end, but
no, but I mean, hey, if you catch the ball, you are a receiver, even if you're a running back. So we listed as receptions. So I could definitely see loss like it. The dude had 3 touchdowns against Ole Miss. And yes, they know how to use tight ends sometimes. Georgia ran a lot of 12, 13 personnel this year. And most of the time you score a lot of points with your tight ends. Didn't see that this past game, but I'm always want to see the tight ends do stuff. And a lot of that was the fact that Ole Miss knew they got burned by the tight ends and they adjusted their scheme. That's, it happens. But right now I got to think it's London Humphreys is leader in that room and Scobie White-Helton. Those are kind of the 2 guys right there. I'm very excited to see Ryan Mosley when he gets here and Craig Dandridge. But we also heard a lot of talk about Landon Roldan. So, but it's a good question because there's not an answer. There's not a bona fide immediate that's who is wide receiver 1. So that's why when we talk about the day 4 in the transfer portal, we're kind of maybe day 5 is the day though Georgia gets its first wide receiver commitment, because you need somebody with some proven talent. I mean, some proven experience with it. Well, and I'm a big fan of Wallace Williams. They would just line him up out wide. Just I would use him as a wide receiver. I don't want to. Love that dude.
Here's a good one. Are we looking at bringing in any running backs?
Yes.
I believe Roddy reported this a couple of days ago. Like, they were obviously looking at adding a body to that room. Now, whether that's a Trevor Etienne type talent come in and take reps like that, or a Josh McCray where you're kind of using them situationally, I would lean toward probably situationally. I don't think you're going to go in there and go pay Jaden Ball whatever it takes to get Jaden Ball on the roster when you already have Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bones in the room.
Yeah, well, you got to be sure you got to keep the guys you have because one of the first questions we got was why didn't they use? I think I forgot who asked it, and I told him I would get to his question. Maybe Fred. Why didn't they use Peanut more? And I still don't know. To me,
for a while it was the hamstring injury, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he was back, and then why not Bo Walker? So you got to hang on to Bo Walker. You got to hang on to Peanuts. You got to hang on to Josh McCray. Josh McCray is like the leading rusher for his team. Comes here, he's not that guy. So you got to hang on to those guys. Plus, you've only signed 1 running back in the last 2 classes. Georgia normally signs 2 per year, so you should have 4. You got 2 in the last 2 years. So I could definitely see them bringing in again. But you're right; it has to be a fit, and you also have to see how many you lose. So. But if you've got that 1-2 punch of Frazier and Chauncey Bowens, it's tough to get a big name to say, yeah, I'm going to go be. And here's the thing: if you're big enough, you're like, well, I can go beat out those guys. Yeah, you're not scared of competition, but it's like the Fernando Mendoza thing. It's like, yeah, I mean, I can go play at Georgia, and I think I'm better than anybody they have on staff, but it's going to be a fight. Or I can go where it's damn near guaranteed to be the starter. So you go somewhere else. But yeah, they would definitely I'm pretty sure it was Jed who actually asked Josh Crawford about transfers. He mentioned that, hey, we only brought in 1 guy the last 2 years. So they're definitely here's like Georgia had hundreds of players that they scouted during the season that are basically I don't say an automatic take, but they're like, this is a guy, if he goes in the portal, contact immediately. This guy goes in the portal, contact immediately. This guy goes in the portal, contact immediately. Yeah, this guy, keep an eye on him to see how this plays out. So they had a scouting of current players just in case. You can't tell me they didn't do that with running backs. So
right.
I think a good question.
Right. Yeah. Oops. I was just gonna say we got 2 other or 1 position group in particular. I think we might want to talk about real quick. If you're edge rusher, we saw a pair of former SEC edge rushers go into the transfer portal tracker in terms of setting up visits. Obviously, Georgia has some needs in the pass rush department. Didn't have many sacks, and
need about
that was
10 of
something
them.
people talked about. Yeah. The Caleb Herring one was interesting. He went into the portal the other day. we saw, and per Chad Simmons is working on setting up a visit to Georgia. I don't think we've got a confirmed hardline date yet on that one. But Roddy, remember, that's a guy that had the strip sack in the Tennessee game this year. I believe he had 2 sacks in that game, a tackle for a loss. Like, that guy played Georgia really well this year and kind of follows the trend of, if you play well against Georgia and you hit the portal, they're going to be more likely to go after you because they've seen you before.
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
other guy, Amaris Williams, guy they recruited out of high school, maybe didn't play well versus Georgia this year off the top of my head, but another guy they're familiar with.
And he's visiting tomorrow, supposedly. Per Dash. Amaris Williams would be very, very interesting. But yeah, that's I know people like to talk about quarterbacks, and we have a story on the front page of UGAsports.com right now talking about would Mike Bobo go after transfer portal quarterback. So you need to check that out. We have his quotes there. And running backs are, wide receivers. All those are sexy because you want those guys to come and have an immediate impact. But where you need help, most importantly, in the portal right now from Georgia, is that safety. They got Khalil Barnes. That's a good. Dude grades out at like 72%. Played 1,879 snaps for Clemson. Multiple year starter. That's definitely a guy you need. A guy you could have used. But you also need a good defensive lineman, difference maker on the D line, and you need edge support. You need guys who can set the edge, who can attack the quarterback. Maris Williams would be good. So definitely, they're not as sexy as the wide receivers, or a quarterback, but the effect those guys could have. Hell, just go back to when Darian Kendrick, you got him, came to Georgia, and you needed another cornerback. The way Kirby Smart runs his defense, having Darian Kendrick won you a title. Not saying him by himself, but just it changes up a lot of how they attack those things. This is what we're talking about. How about contact them even if they're not in the portal? Officially, the word is you wait till they go in the portal and contact them. Unofficially, you can always reach out to their agent. You can reach out to their family. Just you don't have to talk to somebody close to them, and that's what we're called tampering. So we mentioned earlier in the show all these different schools that are reaching out to a lot of Georgia's 4- and 5-star players who aren't starting yet. Guys who are second string or who come in on third down or who are in the rotation. But like say you're a peanut, and Georgia uses you situationally, or Talon Taylor, who you don't get as many snaps, but you get to play, or you're playing special teams. If you're a Justin Williams or Chris Cole, going to play, but you will be a starter maybe next year, but you didn't play as much this year because there's a better guy ahead of you. Those teams are coming and reaching out to them. I doubt they're reaching out to them directly. They're reaching out to their agents because you can talk to agents. So I'm sure Georgia's done the same thing. And we've seen in the past where a kid goes in the portal. We knew that Trevor Etienne was coming to Georgia. Hell, before he even went in the portal. Not before, but right after. And you notice there weren't all these breathless updates and travel updates or visit updates on Trevor Etienne. So not saying Georgia tampered, but yeah, it's no one's waiting until the end, but there's a lot of kids who aren't going in the portal, so you don't waste your time trying to convince them.
That's not tampering. It's just a friendly welfare check.
I love it. Love it.
Well,
that's a good one.
Brett Bielema accused Georgia of a friendly welfare check on Josh.
On who? Who did Brett Bielema accuse?
Brett Bielema accused Georgia of on Josh McCray.
Yeah. Good do it. Yeah. Agents put out feelers. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, he's right. The agents do put out feelers. And yeah, we've seen that. And that's where I was trying to find out what the whole Mike Bobo thing is like. I know other teams have reached out to his agent, like, hey, is Mike want to get back into, is he happy where he's at? But Mike he refused to say if that was true or not. So
Look,
that's a
and
good question. Will Mendoza work out, or do you expect him to transfer out?
Just personally, I think I think he probably came to Georgia with the idea of I'm probably going to be here for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I feel like Roddy, he's one of those guys that if he was going to go in the portal, probably would have happened already at this point.
Yeah. Also, against, with the year that he's had, I don't know. I mean, last year he had everybody clamoring for him. This year, I just don't know how he could go in the portal, but I think it'd be the development that he's getting would be better for him to stick around. And I'm not saying that because we covered Georgia, but I'm just thinking maybe go somewhere else and blows up, but he wouldn't be able to command the same amount of money that he did last year.
When I talked to him in New Orleans, obviously one-on-one, and I didn't get the vibe of a guy that was a foot out the door at all. He very much talked about next year and how he felt embraced in the room, was looking forward to developing further.
Yeah. Hey, and the kid's determined, so we'll see. Jermaine's right about the Athens bars. If they promise 50% of their profits to the NIL, the bars would be overflowing in profits. The Dogs can go after the D-line, RB studs they wanted. Yeah, So if any of you rich folks up there want to open a bar in Athens and do that, I'm with you. And here's a good thing. I like Bobby. He says our defensive ends will probably be great next season. You saw them go from mediocre, bad, to start the season to midway. They were finally able to at least set the edge, get contained, to by the end of the season actually get to the quarterback. And losing Gabe Harris made it a hell of a lot easier on Ole Miss when you really only had to worry about one pass rusher. So, and those guys healthy next year, Quintavious Johnson and Gabe Harris, that should be a nice 1-2 punch there. Let's see here. What was the other question? There was one. Yeah. Roddy, what do you think fixes college football? How do they fix the calendar? What rules do you like to see around the NIL portal? I realize this is not a new subject, but I'd love your opinion. The way I've been wanting to do this for months. I wanted to put out a proposed schedule where the first game is like August 25th, the last Saturday in August. You have the teams show up. They can report for their 29-day camp on starting like July 20th, and or wherever thereabouts. Let them go out there, let them get their practice in, let them have their camp, and let them start early in August. I know, especially a lot of schools up north are not back in session. That sucks, but I guarantee you that no one skips on a Wisconsin game, a Michigan game, an Ohio State game, just because the students aren't there. The students don't make up the entire population of the stadium. So start football a little bit earlier. Yeah, it's hot. It sucks, but that's football's played in the heat. I mean, every one of us has played. We started practicing in the summer and it sucked. And we played those games. You played them on Saturday mornings, when it's hot as hell, but you played. And then by the end of the season, it's freezing. You're trying to wear all your clothes under your shoulder pads. It's in a transitional time, but you play through, you get one bye week, and then you drop the conference championship games. You name a conference champion at the end of the season. This year, probably would have been Alabama. Done. A couple years ago would have been Georgia. The next week, you play the first round of the playoffs. 16 teams, host them at home, and 2 or 3 rounds of hosting on campus. And then when you get to the quarterfinals and the finals, that's your 3 big bowl games, and you rotate those. Everything's played by the championship game is on January 1st. Then everybody's done. You open the portal, let everybody do their portal stuff, and Then you also, at the same time, you have signing day that week of January, so you can get your mid-year enrollees in. Everybody goes to their new school. They get to go through spring camp. The early enrollees go through spring camp. Done. That's how I would fix it. At least the calendar. And I think it would work out. I need to, I could be wrong, but I'd like to actually sit down with the calendar and count the weeks and make sure that that would work out. But I think it would. And now you're back to January 1st being the most important day in college football, because that's the day the championship's played. So
I think the only, like you already talked about your opposition with the northern schools and kids not being back. The only other opposition would be, I'm sure the people talking about student athletes having to take final exams may take issue with having playoff games on the same week as final exams. But,
it's been
there's
done.
No other worthy way. It's been done
for
for
100 years.
Yeah. I like it.
Guess what? They're students. They're student athletes. So if they can't practice for bowl week because they need to study for exam, too damn bad. You got an accounting final. Study for your final.
Yeah. I like that because I think I was talking about this the other day with somebody else, and I was wondering, do you keep signing day in December or do you move it? But with like the way the calendar's now, like Georgia doesn't go back till January 12th. You could 100% have signing day end of December or whatever and have early enrollees enroll, by the first day of class.
And personally, I mean, I know a lot of the coaches now are saying, yeah, we'd like to actually go back to having it in February, because then the transfer portal will be over. We know who we got and who we don't have. And that would help us with our, high school recruiting. How many spots do we have? Because when it was ahead of time and you signed all these guys, then all of a sudden you lost 3 running backs to the portal. If you only signed 1 running back, you're like, well, if we'd known this ahead of time, we'd have taken so-and-so. So if you got time to run your, it would be a bit better for roster management, and it would align it with the academic calendar so that you don't have kids trying to, after the national championship game, which I expect Georgia to be in next year. And if Georgia's playing on January 19th, there's some kids it's way too far past drop ad. So it's just not.
Let's remind the folks, Roddy, we did a show post spring last year or this past season. And I think all of us, except for one member of the staff, when asked natty on or natty off or to G-Day, said natty off. And I know you had talked about it in terms of there were a lot of people expecting that team to go 9-3 or 10-2 and end up going 12-2. Like, I think it's not being appreciated enough in terms of how young that roster was and how far they came for you to sit here and say, like, you expected them to play in the national championship next year. I think hold some weight, because we just came off a year where preseason expectations were Georgia was rebuilding. Like, Georgia was building for another year, per se, in terms of being a championship contender. So, if you would have said that like 3 years ago, it would have just flown over my head. But I think right now, because that was just the expectation. But right now, I think that holds some weight in terms of kind of where this roster is at and why we're going to be doing 16 days of this portal show, because this is like the last important piece of the offseason for them in terms of building to that, getting back to that championship game.
They've definitely got some holes they need to fill in, and hopefully tomorrow they pick up a wide receiver and a defensive end. So.
All this hinting makes me think that you know something that we don't yet.
I never do. Hi, folks. We've got to run. I asked earlier today if you want to drop off any prayers for my father-in-law, my wife's father, Wayne King. He's got to go into hospice, and any kind thoughts or kind words you would have for him and for my wife, I would greatly appreciate it. Big believer in the power of prayer, and I don't normally ask for stuff like that, but if you folks could do that, it would. I'd really appreciate it. Until I guess we'll have a show tomorrow. Coach Donnan won't be able to do our show tomorrow, but I'm gonna probably reach out and see if we can get Jed May to join us tomorrow, because he will have a lot more portal. We need to talk more about the portal targets and some of the stuff like that, like Harrison and I have done here. but maybe we'll move the show back to tomorrow night, and we can have Jed on there to hopefully talk about maybe some of the advances on day 5, be halfway through the portal thing. So we'll do that tomorrow evening.
There's some visitors tomorrow, Roddy, that you might have some recaps for.
That's kind of my point. So I kind of want to do it at noon because that's the traditional time, but the guys that are coming in tomorrow, maybe we need to hold off till tomorrow evening. All right, folks. We'll see y'all later. Y'all take care.